God, we were so young in that picture. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Vito x DINO podcast. This is episode number 81. My name is Vito Delsante, along with James in the back. His name is Dean Haspiel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dean Haspiel.
Take it again. James jumped on your intro.
That's all right. Hi, James. How you doing?
Good.
I got to start bringing people into my background. What the hell?
I'm just chilling on Sadie's computer because I just feel like it.
He's building a game of some kind back there.
All right. That's cool.
Believe it or not.
Yep.
So this is our second Kickstarter reward episode. As you guys know, Dean and I both offered spots on the show for Kickstarter backers. And last week we had Steve Bearfield. This week we have Dave Slusher. Dave, we welcome you. We thank you, first of all, for backing Dean's Antimatter Kickstarter, and we appreciate your support, and we welcome you to the show.
Well, thanks, guys. It's good to be here.
And that's
my first question.
Nope.
My first question is that your real last name?
That is my real last name, yes.
That's a great last name. And what is the background of that name?
I don't really know the derivation. My maternal family are like full of these genealogy buffs. And so they can trace their family back to the original Englishman who came here in 1690. My father's side of the family, where the name comes from, do not care. So I don't know anything about that side, really.
Right. Well, what's your, like, I'm half Austrian and half Polish. Like, what's your...
Largely Scots. Scots, English, just sort of that. Then generally American mutt beyond that. My father's side is kind of like Hessian, people who came over from Germany in, the 18th and 19th century. So
okay,
they're just kind of I don't know, just sort of, I am what's at the bottom of the melting pot.
Oh, wow. I never heard that term before. I like that. Where are you living right now? Where are you at?
I am in Conway, South Carolina, which is it's about 15 miles inland from Myrtle Beach.
Okay. All right, cool. And that's where you grew up? Is that where you're from?
No, I grew up in Nebraska and kind of western Kansas. So I was very Midwestern for, the whole point, like where my comic life started. I was in Nowheresville, like farming towns of under 4,000 people. That was most of my life. Then we moved to Augusta between my junior and senior year in high school, and I've been kind of in the South most of the rest of my life.
Where did you discover comics?
Oh, sorry, Dean. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I always hear the story of like the Nowheresville or the small population, like it's a Jim Thompson, novel or something, but like, where did you had to have found a comic shop? You didn't discover comics online, you're one of us, right?
I was probably 15 the first time I walked into a comic shop. Largely, so small town life is largely you know a guy, or a guy who knows a guy. I mean, that's kind of how everything operates. So one of my dad's friends was the jobber who filled the racks at the grocery store. So I got lots of coverless comics, when I was a kid. So I would just get a pile of
can we discuss that real
Absolutely.
quick? Why you said coverless?
Yes.
The reason why you got coverless is because I think when a newsstand would get a bunch of comics and they couldn't maybe they take a month to sell them or something like that. And the ones that didn't sell, you didn't return the whole comic book. You would cut off the cover, or even more
like
succinctly, you would cut off the title.
Logo.
With the number or whatever on it, and you could hand those back and get credit or whatever. So that left you with a pile of like coverless comics, let's say.
Exactly.
I think
I read a bunch of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So no collector value whatsoever, but you would just get this pile of stuff you would just read. And this is the newsstand comic fan of the 70s meant that, you read 4 issues of Daredevil, and then you may miss 6, and then you read 5, then you get 1, so like anything that was, had an arc of any length of time, good luck, God be with you, whether you ever get to the end of that, whether you get the middle of it, who knows?
I started collecting Uncanny X-Men, I think, at 193. And I had a pretty solid run and during that run, I moved from New York, getting them from newsstands, then to the first comic store I ever went to was called The Comic Shop, which was owned by Lou Manna Jr.'s father. And then I moved to Pennsylvania, and the only place that had comics was a Hallmark store that had just like a magazine rack. And I would just I got random Captain Americas here and there and some DCs, but for the most part, they always had X-Men. So I got lucky there.
Vito, you just said Lou Manna Jr.'s father ran a comic shop.
Yeah.
Lou Manna is a cartoonist, right?
Yes.
I inked Lou Manna.
Yeah, he's an inker too.
I believe that someone had hired him to pencil a comic, and I want to say I was 18 going on 19. It was right after high school. I was living with my dad. I didn't go to college yet for a couple of years. And I remember I believe Lou Manna penciled it and I inked it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't realize his father ran a comic book shop. But going back real quick to coverless comics, I can't stop thinking about we need to publish coverless comics.
Oh God.
You know, the first page, the first thing you see is the first page of the comic is the cover. Come on, man.
That's a gimmick. We could probably.
I'm sure it's cheaper to do, and
it's cheaper to do because you don't need a cover. Then you're literally just publishing the story, right?
There's a certain brilliance to that. It's like this thing that you shouldn't have, right?
Yeah.
It's by its very nature, the artifact is a little bit like outlaw and illicit.
Absolutely outlaw, because we've been talking about bootleg comics and what that means to us, and I feel like the next. And I hate to use the term stunt because it is kind of a stunt, but at the same time, it's an economical stunt. You're saving a 4-page signature, when you think about it. So you're literally, oh my God, that's so incredible. And then what the stunt would be though, is if you did, you took the splash page, but then you put a cover on it, but then you did something to make it look like half of it was torn off, right? So you're missing half the cover on the splash, then you turn the page and then there's the splash, to begin the comic. So that's more of a stunt, right? But to actually just publish a comic, say, yo, I don't have enough money to hire Alex Ross to draw my cover or whatever to sell the damn thing. At that point, no one's reading your comic. They're just buying it because Alex Ross did the cover, right? Or whoever you hire at that point. I was talking to someone today, God, who was it? Where they were saying, Demetrius at Anyone Comics, how cartoonists, when they bring artwork, prints, drawings, whatever, and their comic books, the thing that sells the least on their table is the comic books, which is crazy, man.
Yeah.
We're in the business of comics.
Regarding your coverless comic stunt, the number one, if it caught on, it would get rid of variant covers immediately. Like you would never have another cover. Like variant covers would not be an issue.
It forces you to read the comic, man. There's nothing else.
Right. But on the opposite side, the downside of it is those in the know would probably be like, all right, I'm returning this. Like I get my money
after they read it, before they read it, after they read it, after they read it, right? Like, oh my God, I just feel like to me, this will be the thing that saves comics. It's coverless comics.
There you go.
Think about it, man.
It happened here.
Brilliant.
I'm writing that down.
I've written it down too. I got it right here in my notes, man. I just wrote coverless comics. And it's next to bootleg. There was another note here because I've yet to figure out my bootlegs to make it make sense, because there's the whole idea of, all right, there's bootleg comics where you do it with your own stuff. But then there's like the bootleg comic where you're illegally writing and drawing a franchise character, right? Basically. And that's a kind of bootleg as well. Like bootleg Wolverine, bootleg Spider-Man, that kind of stuff, Batman. And in fact, what's the status report on your bootleg, Vito?
I'm actually putting that on hold for the time being because I believe that artist will be working on 2 short stories with me for Charlie McKelvey's 2 anthologies. One that starts next week. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
And, one that I think is later on in the year. So I think that artist is going to be doing those 2 stories. So, we'll get him paid, and then hopefully we'll build some trust, and he'll be like, all right, you can pay me after or whatever. I don't know.
Sure. All right. Well, that makes sense because again, your bootleg story that I'm aware of is evergreen. You can publish that 10 years
Yeah.
from now if you want to,
Yeah.
you know. So, all right. Hey, Dave, you ever do you write or draw or do anything creatively?
I do write some. There was a time period where I was trying really hard to like break into prose fiction. And this would be the era when I worked rotating shifts in a chemical factory. So I would, like at night, I would have access to, like the computers, and I would be printing out, I'd be printing out my SASEs and sending them off to, get the writer's guidelines for, Isaac Asimov science fiction and stuff like that. Where I really screwed up is that would have been the absolute best time in my life to be making zines because I had unfettered, unmetered access to the photocopier when all the office people were gone. It's like, why was I not doing that?
No, I was just listening to oh God, what's his name? I forget his name right now. He does a zine called Dummy Zine, and he was talking about early days. Tom Hart, cartoonist pal of mine. I'm forgetting the name of the school that he has in Florida, but they've been doing a podcast where they interview cartoonists from the 90s and talking about what it was like, at SPX and all those early day shows. And a lot of it is the DIY nature of comics and creating zines. And then this interview I was listening to, his name is Casey, but he does Dummies, was talking about how like in the weekend, he and his buddy would just do collages and stuff and cut things up and like just go Rambo and create like a zine in a weekend just for the fun of it, because that was like how random it could be, and I remember making zines when I was, younger and bringing them to shows like an SPX or what was the other one, Ape, in San Francisco. And then, Mocha would arrive later as a response to trying to have a New York version of SPX, and then you would just do these 8 to 12 page, folded over 8.5 by 11 paper that you would staple with a long stapler to have something to sell at a show that might have been like an 8-page comic plus 2 pages of this or whatever, or a drawing
cover
or anything like that. Gus Vasquez the other day was asking about what one might spend money today on an ash can. And I had forgotten that term, ash can. I don't even actually understand what it means, ash can. But if I'm correct, it's like an 8 to 12 to 24 page, mini comic, for lack of a better.
That's basically it.
But why is it called an ash can?
I forget. It had something to do with Wizard magazine, I think, and it just kind of caught on.
Yeah, it's like
really?
I have some that Gabriel Ba and his brother did one, like Roland.
Yes.
Okay.
And I have that, like an ash can. It's like a quarter size, and it's a fraction of the comic, and it's in black and white. I think it was just like a real cheap way to get preview review copies out to people.
So it's like the beta version, let's say, of certain comics, just to get it out there. And I did wonder if it was black and white proper. But what Gus is doing is something that has more quality and value to it. It's going to be color and all this stuff. So we were all telling him no less than 15, but you can go up to like 20, 25 on a 32-page color, art thing.
Well, the ash can was a preview where a mini comic is a full comic, and like I remember ash cans that I've gotten were in like poly bags with a magazine like Wizard or Hero magazine, and they were like thinner paper, glossy but thinner paper. It was very weird. Like they were just super like not durable. They're just like
meant to be tossed eventually.
Yeah, as disposable as possible, but it made you want to seek out the actual thing. Do you know what though, Dean? You brought up the 90s, and I really, it's so funny because like you were on Splash Pages the other night on Tuesday night, and I had jumped in and I had asked a question about event comics, like for you. And it made me think just now when you said the 90s, like, what's weird is that the 90s, whenever you think of 90s comics, you think of the Image guys, you think of Liefeld, Larson, McFarlane, etc. But then there's that whole underground, not underground, but like indie comics. It's so weird. It's like the 70s, but
absolutely. So it's funny because you said when you think of 90s comics, you think of Image. And yes, technically you're right. When I think of 90s comics, I think of actually like Fantagraphics and Drawn Quarterly.
Yeah.
And I think about Dan Clowes' 8-Ball, Peter Baggs' Hate, Bob Fingerman's Minimum Wage, Jessica Abel's Art Babe, Adrian Tomaney's Optic Nerve, the Hernandez
Dave's
Brothers
wearing a
Love and
Hernandez
Rocket.
Brothers shirt right now.
Exactly. Well, Nelly, like the Hernandez brothers. I think about all that, and I think about how in '95, me and Josh Ufeld got together to do Keyhole, you know, a 2-man anthology, and all that stuff. So to me, I feel like, you got some.
He's showing a Jaime Hernandez, Hopi and Ray. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Maggie and Ray, kind of remembering what they were when they were younger, but as they are now, like, which is the appeal of Love and Rockets, specifically Jaime Hernandez's run, is that all the characters kind of age in real time, and so it's really cool.
Yeah,
that's a really cool piece.
Jaime did not do. I've got a couple sketches from him, and you always sort of, you tell him exactly what you want, and you sort of get what you get, and that's, you know, that is part of the game. What I really wanted was them to be on like the same level, and both of them in a balloon with the dots between them, so you couldn't tell which one was thinking about the other one. So it was like the old one, like the old couple and the young couple, and one of them thinking about the other, and it could be either way. That was what I was trying to get. This is not to take anything away from this. This is a beautiful sketch. But
listen, if you have, just light a match and just burn it.
Well, you'll see this is 2012, so he dated it. So you can also see, like, if I show you this, you can see that this probably, now I'm kind of anal, and I carry these like big heavy protectors, which I did not do. I mean, this probably rode around in a box between multiple moves. I'm like, I've gotten much better about taking care of the stuff, but it's sort of, you know, like the Loving Rockets guys were my guys, right? Yeah. They, you know, when you were talking about comic shops, although I didn't get into a comic shop, there was a point once where we had jobs and started getting money. Even though we were nowhere, we would order from Westfield Comics, and we would get the mail order.
Yeah, I remember those ads.
And so I was kind of like the distributor guy. I would get the order for him, and then everybody who was in, which was largely me, my brother, and one friend, and then occasionally there would be some other person. Everyone would go through that order sheet, and you had literally nothing. It was just the titles. There was no previews. There was no nothing. And you would just fill out, and everybody would say what they want. And so I would say, oh, we want 3 of this and 1 of this and 2 of these. And then the beautiful thing was the day the box would come from UPS, we would all meet at my house, and we would divide up the piles. And we would sit there for a couple of hours, and we would read all the books that someone else got that we didn't get. So you'd read each other's books, and then you take your own books home. And it was like, you know, that was 40 years ago, and I still long for that day. Like, I wish I
could. Best, man.
Idyllic description of comic book collecting to me.
And that's when you read them. Like, I don't know what today's practices are, but I literally have a pile of comics that, for instance, is it Joe Kelly? Is he the one writing Spider-Man right now?
Yes.
So Joe Kelly, right? So I decided, you know, there are 2 comics I get no matter what. Actually, 3 now. That I get no matter what is Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. And then recently, in the last bunch of years, I don't know why I've become a Savage Dragon fan. Like, it's just nuts to me. But, you know, what happens right now in comics, at least with Marvel and DC, is that they seem to renumber them at number 1s when they have a new team jump on or a new writer take over and do their arc, as it were, right? So I decided, okay, I'll try the Joe Kelly one, whatever, fine. And I think it's up to issue like 36 or something. I have yet to read the first issue. And it's like, why? What has happened? I used to devour these things weekly, you know, like, and I don't anymore. And maybe it's old age, and maybe it's because I'm busy and I'm trying to make ends meet and everything else. But it's not like I'm getting too many comics, you know, like I should be able to read. And then the other thing is that the lettering's gotten too small. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Like,
I don't notice
a magnifying glass now to read.
It's funny, like my critique, like Charlie will say, Charlie McKelvey, who I publish with, he'll look at my comics and like anything that I've lettered. He's like, you know, you're taking up a lot of room. You can, you know, shrink those down a little bit. And I'm like, I'm always afraid. Here's the thing. I've always had like, in terms of lettering, my philosophy is if it's a book for a child, like a kid's book, not in all ages, but a child's book, make the lettering big because they're learning how to read. So you got to, make it recognizable. And then when it comes to like adults, I try to keep it legible, but like you don't want to hide art, and it's like, it's a hard balance.
But you bring up a good point though, Vito. What about making comics for old people?
It's like a bell curve.
Maybe
It's
one
big and it gets
one
little
panel
and it gets
page. One panel a page. It's all splash pages.
I think you're wrong. I think it's not one panel a page. I think it's horizontal.
Okay.
In this episode, Dave, you're so lucky to be a part of this. In this episode alone, we've come up with coverless comics and now comics for old people. Here's the gimmick. You take the comic. Oh, where's my comic? I have tons of comics and I can't find one right now. Here we go. You take the comic and instead of being like this, you go this way, horizontal, and it's all 3-panel strips, like old newspaper strips.
Oh, and you know what? It's only 3-panel stories because of the attention span.
Sure. Are you kidding
There
me?
was that was it Dan Slott and Allred, Silver Surfer? They did a horizontal book that you read backwards and forwards.
Yeah, that's right. It was like what do you call that?
A Mobius strip. Yeah.
Mobius strip kind of thing. And they've done. I mean, there have been sideways comics, and in fact, I would hazard to say that a lot of my career I drew landscape comics because of for a while we were considering, like when I did Street Code at Zuda, and it was like half a page, let's say, right, and then the second half of the page would be the next page. And I did that with Batman 66 because it was an online digital thing first. So all my Batman 66 pages are split right in the middle, and then of course the vertical scroll happened, and that became a different consideration, But what kind of? Well, I do also want to ask you at some point. Did you get a chance to read Antimatter? Because one of the reasons why you're here is because you chose the level to be on the show, and I thank you very much because I'm very grateful and it helped me publish my comic. But what kind of comics do you like? And then what do you think of Antimatter?
I like Antimatter. So I know your work primarily. Well, my entry point to your work was through Harvey Picar, which was the first time I met Piscor, the first time I met Chris Sumney. It was all the same story. It's like I just wanted to talk to him about Harvey Picar. And at some point I'll tell you my near miss with Harvey Picar, which is like one of the big missed opportunities of my life.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But and it's 100% my fault. It was an own goal. But so I knew of you that way, and I had listened to Scene by Scene with Josh and Dean. I listened to the entirety of that podcast, so I kind of knew you were on my radar. And then somewhere along the line, I ran across something, and I saw that you were. So I fell backwards into this podcast, and then through all of that, I came back out to the Antimatter Kickstarter.
So you backed his prior Kickstarters?
I hadn't even read. So I have like the Fox comics in here. They're in my voluminous, and when I say voluminous, I mean they're about 15 of those drawer boxes in a storage unit of my TBR. Of all the various comics I've bought and have not yet quite made it to reading.
Yep.
So what I have in this room is the already read and filed comics, but everything that I haven't read is in the storage space.
Sure.
Partly because at some point my wife was like, your office is upstairs. You got to get a guy in here and find out how much weight can be on that floor.
Oh, wow.
So I had a dude come in here. We were measuring the floor and we're like estimating the weight of a box.
It's no joke, man. Like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, a guy was kicked out of his apartment in I think New York City because he had too many books. I think it was in the New York Times. And by the way, I'm next.
Was it Andy Helfer?
Andy Helfer. Oh, Andy
I say
Helfer.
this because I love Andy Helfer.
Yeah,
I helped him move out of his apartment downtown. Michelle was there with me, and I think Nick Papora, like a bunch of us from Jim Hanley's, all went down to help him out. And I kid you not, with the exception of Garth Ennis, I've never seen that many books in one apartment. Like Garth had a lot, like, and his walls were basically bookshelves. Andy had a ladder for his bookshelves. I've never seen that before. I also
Yeah.
saw the Kevin Maguire original artwork for Justice League International in his bathroom. So there's that.
That's awesome.
Place of honor, apparently. But,
Yeah, no, I'm next. I'm next on the list. I think I'm gonna get kicked out of my apartment someday for too many books. And I gotta, you know, we're entering that phase of our life where you're not. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna look at most of these things again. You know, like, and I need to really pick and choose. You know, like what I'm gonna keep that really means a lot, and something I hopefully will revisit. You know, like sometimes you read something, you read it once, that's it. That's all you're gonna do. That's fine. That's so you can read another thing, So, but anyway,
Dave,
what did you think? Did you get a chance to? Oh.
Before he answers that, I want to know. Having read Dean's work with Harvey, going into Antimatter, were you expecting what? What were you expecting? Maybe like not what you got, or?
Yeah, I was not expecting it to be, slice of life. I for the circuitous and like you probably do not have that many people reading Antimatter that have as little haspil under their belt as I did.
Right.
It's not generally a entry point.
Well,
a
Kickstarter. But in some ways, if that's the first comic you ever read of mine, I'm kind of excited by that, to be honest.
It's not the first, but it's not. I've read The Quitter, and then
Yeah, but that's Harvey Picard. Like
a few random things, but not. I mean, I would be very. I would be lying if I said I was deeply immersed in your work. So I kind of it's a fresh eyes kind of thing, and I really enjoyed it. It had that kind of wacky energy that I was kind of hoping for. I mean, I heard you talk about it,
sure.
So I kind of knew what to expect, and it paid off. It was what I was putting my money down for. Let's put it that way.
That's a good way to put it.
I appreciate that. Well, thanks for taking the chance and the risk.
I don't expect you to back a Stray comic ever. just based on that. But I mean, I'm working on other stuff that you'll probably enjoy, but that's not a conversation for tonight.
You can't. But while we're here, like we're trying to learn what Dave likes, right? And so, and obviously, Dave, you have heard our podcast, so you're semi-familiar with what Vito does, So, are those the kind of comics you read? Like Vito, like what's your comparisons, right? We've talked about Nightwing.
Yeah, well, he mentioned Daredevil earlier in terms of like being in the 70s and reading coverless comics and stuff. So I don't know that you would compare it to Frank Miller or even like a Bendis Daredevil run or anything like that, but it's adjacent. It's probably more
like Roger McKenzie Daredevil, Frank
like
Miller Daredevil,
Dan Chichester and stuff like that, like in the 80s and 90s. But like I would say it's more, the way I would really describe it would be whatever your idealized version of Daredevil is based on the media you've consumed, whether it be comics, cartoons, the TV show, whatever. There's probably a picture of Daredevil in your head where you're like, all right, blind, lawyer, like all the basics. And I think that's somewhere where Stray lies. Like it's like the not that he's blind or anything like that, but like the essential versions of these characters that are kind of evergreen, no matter who writes it, who draws it, or whatever media they put out in it, whether it even be an action figure, it's like the idealized version of that character. That's what I think Stray would be. Like, it's like, oh, well, the influences. You might not know those characters today. Like, you might not recognize them in their own books, but you have this preconceived notion of what that character is. And you're like, oh, I get it now. And I know what he's pointing at to compare his stuff to. So. But Dean was asking like what do you like based on what you've heard us talk about and stuff. I'm sure I have to also make a benchmark that this might be the very first time on the podcast in 81 episodes someone used the word circuitous. Because we have a podcast that you can say that and it will be understood.
So I have kind of like, if you go to my pull list, which is, it's weird that I kind of hit a point in my life where I probably can afford more comics than at any point that I've ever
Yeah.
collected them, and I'm buying so few compared to like how many are up on the shelf. You know, I am buying Daredevil, I'm buying Thor. It's weirdly, I've kind of imprinted like a baby duck on certain characters. Like the Flash is always one of my characters because that's one of the ones I was reading, you know, at, you know, whatever age 5, you know, that was one of those coverless comics was, you know, Flash comics. And I think last year I got Mike Grell to sign this beat up copy of Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes.
Wow.
And I told him, I said, like, this isn't much to look at, but I guarantee you I bought this off a spinner rack, you know, at a grocery store. And I've been lugging it around ever since, you know.
That's a well-loved comic. I don't care what anybody says at that point.
So you know, I've always had a soft spot for Legion of Superheroes and some of these ones. At the same time, kind of that path through, like in that Westfield Comics era, you'll see like over my shoulder, you can see there's an American flag sketch, not by Chaykin, that's actually by Tom Lyle. But but you know, so I was taking a few flyers on those Westfield Comics, and so Love and Rockets 7 was the first one. It's like, I don't know what this Love and Rockets is. Judge Dredd #1, you know, of those Eagle reprints. You know, this is that era. And American Flag 4, I think, was the first one. So I'm just, but once you get the first one, there's house ads in the back. And I'm like, oh, well, now I know. Now I've seen covers of this other, you know, that once you get the first one from the first publisher in, I'm going to, hopefully I don't screw things up. If you can see over here, you see that thing. I don't know if you guys can see it. See that thing hanging on the ceiling there? That red circle?
Yeah.
That is an Evangeline promo thing. On the other side of it is Mage. That Komiko was handing those things out at the Atlanta Fantasy Fair, 84, 85, one of those years.
Wow.
I've still got this thing. You know?
That's
you
cool.
know, so the, like, when we moved from nowhere to Georgia, then I started to have access to this stuff. So Tom Lyle lived in Augusta, Georgia, and he was like the guy who was driven and was going to be pro. And so there was many Gift of the Magi Christmases where my brother and I would buy each other Tom Lyle sketches for Christmas. And I would give him, you know, I would get an American Flag and he would get an Iron Fist. And, you know, and so we have kind of a shitload of Tom Lyle stuff around here. And in fact, man. On the thing there's like a little thing where on the mat, there's like a little note, and he says, "Genuine Tom Lyle blood," from where he cut himself while he was matting it.
Oh wow, that's cool.
You know, so the first summer that we moved there, and I moved between my junior and senior year in high school, which is a real tough time.
Yeah,
to relocate from a small town to a big town, from the, you know, Midwest to the South, and I tried very hard to get emancipated, and my mom hit the roof. And I tried to tell her, I was like, you should be proud of me. I've never planned anything in my life. I had a whole plan of staying in Kansas and then going to Kansas State University. I had a job, I had a car. It was like I had people to stay with. But we ended up moving, and part of the consolation prize of all this is my dad took me to the Atlanta Fantasy Fair in 1984. And I had never been to a convention. I'd only been to real limited comic shops until we moved to Augusta. And at that one, I met Will Eisner. I met Robert Bloch. You know, Tim Truman. You know, it was like a mind-blowing. Probably Matt Wagner was there. You know, I'm kind of don't remember everybody that was there, but I remember I had the longest conversation with Will Eisner because he had no one in his line.
Oh
yeah.
And we're like,
I had an experience like that with Yaphet Kotto. Like, it was at one of those Wizard Worlds I did like however many years ago. I did like 3 years worth of Wizard Worlds, and there was like the celebrity booths kind of thing where you get a picture and sign whatever, and like there were like lines upon lines for like children I had never heard of. And when I say children, I'm obviously talking about young actors in their 20s, right? For TV shows I never heard of, but there'd be like lines around the block. And then right next to them, or a couple booths over, there's Yaphet Kotto by himself, like listening to crickets. And I was like, oh my God, does nobody know what's going, you know, who this guy is? And no, of course not. So I would go over and hang out with Yaphet Kotto, or so many different celebrities that were like, you know, old timers, let's call them, you know, that had such great legacies. So yeah, you could go up to someone like, nope, probably, you know, whatever con that was, they probably thought that Will Eisner would move the needle, and maybe he didn't, like, but you understood that who he was,
In '84, I don't even think they were reprinting The Spirit yet. He was probably
the Kitchen Sink was coming out, and
Was it?
Will Eisner Quarterly was coming out. Because I remember I took he like paid through every single page of that. I got the director's commentary track
Oh
for the
wow.
issue of Will Eisner. He's like, oh yeah, oh you know what? Let me tell you where this came from. And it's like it was the greatest time, and I was 17, right? And and it was just fantastic.
That's great. That's great.
It's so weird to think of like how. I mean, I'm sure somebody from the West Coast that's around our age could probably tell a story that would be so different from what we experienced, me and Dean being on the East Coast up north, than you being in the South East Coast-ish area with South Carolina, Atlanta, and North Carolina. And then, somebody in the Midwest, like in Texas and stuff, like these stories are kind of like, they're so familiar and so relatable, but like they're so different. like I like Dean telling a story about him and Mike meeting Mark Hamill.
Mike is meeting Mark Hamill. Mike I've told you my Will Eisner story, right?
Probably. You definitely didn't tell Dave.
All right, real quick is it was at an SPX, and Diana Schutz was a guest, and Diana Schutz was walking him around, editor at Dark Horse. And she was introducing him to specific cartoonists, and for some reason she wanted me to meet him, and I felt very honored. And I had a comic, I think it was some Keyholes. It was at the top shelf table, and we had just debuted Boy in My Pocket, which was a Billy Dogma comic. And she hands it to him, and he's flipping through it. He's taking a look, and he's turning the pages, and he gets to the last page, and he looks at me. And he pumps his fist. He says, "You're the future of comics, kid." And I was like, "Oh my God!" Right? I was like, "This is incredible." He just gifted me with this, like, encouragement, and like, I'm riding high on this for the next 10 minutes at the table, and then, way down at the other end of the room, I hear, "You're the future of comics, kid." But I understood what he was doing, right? Like, he was like, he might have been looking at my cop going, "What the fuck is this? Like, what is going on here?"
Well, but more importantly, Diana's bringing him to specific artists.
Yes.
So maybe he's like being legit, like, because she vetted you, he's saying these things.
So he had to, and he probably had an open mind anyway for the future of comics, right? Like, even though he was always had one foot in the future in terms of the business of comics and the format and the how to indulge the medium and grow the medium through his work. Like, he is such a groundbreaking. Many times he was a groundbreaking cartoonist. We still talk about him today. We celebrate him at panels. All the time. There's a Will Eisner week. But yeah, there's nothing like meeting the cartoonists that you've been reading, like it's, and then they're people, they're just people.
Did you were either of you guys ever on the Will Eisner mailing list?
No.
You know what this thing is? There was a Yahoo mailing list in like the late 90s through, I think, longer than you would think. It's kind of like MASH, right? You think MASH ran till that long. This thing ran so long past when you would thought it would end, but it was, you could ask Will Eisner questions, and then once a week he would gather up all the questions. He'd get this super long email, all caps every time, from Will, answering all the questions. And one of the real regular question askers on that list was Dave Gibbons.
Really?
It was fantastic.
That's cool.
And you could ask anything about business or art or anything.
Right?
Yeah.
This was in the 90s?
This was late 90s through, I think it was a Yahoo mailing list.
So Dave Gibbons is an already established creator.
Yes. Oh, he's way established.
Beyond that.
If he still has that email somewhere in the, I think I have made an effort to like hang on to those because they're like this. I'm sure that like you can't get them any other way than somebody, having a copy of these emails. I'm sure Yahoo has burned all that shit at some point. And, there was just like these, I tried to impress on my kid these notions of, if you just hang out and be kind of reasonably open and reasonably friendly to the best of your abilities, you would be amazed what happens.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Doors that open.
There's all these people that I know just because I happen to be somewhere. It's like it's like being a mediocre bassist, but you have your own amp and you're a good hang, and you get to be in the band for a long time.
I mean, that you're describing a lot of. It's funny you use the word mediocre because there's a lot of mediocre stuff, but you know what? You show up, right,
Mm-hmm.
and you do the do, and not everyone is a virtuoso. Not everyone is going to blow your mind. Like that's not the point. The point is to show up, try to have some fun, and once in a while there's like a genius that shows up, maybe elevates the band or the situation or whatever it is that people are doing together.
For the sake of Dave being on the show for the first time and kind of relating that kind of future of comics story. So I used to work in a comic. You probably already know this, but I used to work in a comic store in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Worked there for about 11 years. And so I got really friendly with DC staff, like DC and Marvel staff, but a lot of DC guys became like really good friends. One of them being Mark Chiarillo. And Mark was, for the longest time, the art director. At some point, he got a VP position that was basically the same job, but just a different title. But early on, when I had started, becoming friendly with him, I showed him these samples that I had done for inking. And like, I was like, hey, like you always said, if I have anything, just show you, I'll show you. So I showed him these samples and he put his hand on my shoulder and he goes, Vito, you're a good writer. Just stick to writing.
Yeah, but starting with the hand on the shoulder, you
hand on the shoulder in the middle of the first aisle of the store.
Oh my God! I wish I could see these inking samples, man.
I wish I knew where they were, but yeah.
Was it that Marvel tryout book?
No. This was a creator-owned book, actually. Like I was trying to not cut corners, but I was trying to save money to do anything, to save money. So I was like, I can.
Yeah. Well, okay. So there, to all hail the mediocre, and sometimes, like, listen, there's so many quote media. I probably land in the mediocre world when you can contrast me to the geniuses that exist in comics. Like I'm okay with that. I just think ultimately, just to keep making what you make, you'll arrive at the place you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think people who are trying to get famous and make money, that's the wrong way to
in the wrong business.
And you're in the wrong business,
I had a 30-year career as a software developer, and there was no point where I was ever the best developer on any team I was ever on. Right? I met some true genius programmers, and those people were in large part nightmares because they were hard to integrate into a team, and you would come in on the morning and say, oh, I rewrote the whole system to do. It's like, but we have other things that talk. I mean, it just doesn't work like that, so, as somebody who shows up and, files the bug reports and does the work, the plotting kind of, a lot of this work is tedious.
Yeah.
And speaking of, look at Vito, look at me, and look at you. You got headphones. You got this beautiful looking mic.
I was going to say something about his mic like a while ago. Like, Jesus, the sound quality on that mic is amazing.
That's incredible.
I mean, I guess this is the time where I will deploy this, because I told you guys I've been podcasting for a while.
Yeah.
And so I'm holding up my plaque from the Podcast Hall of Fame.
Wow.
2022.
Because I basically have the same relationship to podcasting as Alan Bean does to moonwalks. Right? I was like number 5 to do it. But no one knows his name.
What a reference, number 1.
You're talking about number 5. Forget 1. Number 5.
He had that name in his pocket since 2022 at the very least.
Oh, I've had that name in my pocket since 2005. Yeah, when Adam Curry started the Daily Source Code, which was not even the first podcast, but kind of like the popular, the popular beginning of podcasting. I started mine the next day because I thought,
Good for you.
I can do that. I had done a lot of college radio. I actually did a show in the mid 90s called Reality Break, where I interviewed science fiction writers, science fiction, fantasy writers, comics people. So, I had interviewed Joe Kubert for that. I had interviewed Will Eisner for that, so and then at some point I was actually producing that from my house for a few years. So I had stuff, I had mixers and mics and stuff, and we had literally just moved to South Carolina. And so Adam Curry starts doing this thing, and I had been reading his blog, for a year or two before then. And he said, I'm doing this experiment with audio. And I listened to him, like, that's fun. And like the box with my radio stuff was on top of a pile in this office that I had just moved into. If it had been at the bottom of the pile, I might not have started when I did, it just, there's a lot of luck in everything,
So do you do something regularly now?
Yes. I have a show called The Evil Genius Chronicles, which, again, not popular, but it is if you measure it from the first episode to the most recent episode, it is the longest running podcast in history.
Wow.
It's 22 years.
How did we get on your radar is a better question. That's insanity.
I mean, I
got to explain something to everyone. I'm on Reddit, but I'm like very stupid when it comes to Reddit, to be honest. So David sent me a message, but I didn't see it for months. I think he sent me a message in January. That seems about right.
Yeah, that's right.
And I didn't respond until last month, I think, or 3 weeks ago or something. And it was literally because there's a little tab that said maybe direct messages or inbox or something like that. And all I could see were my notifications. So I'm just looking at notifications and just seeing people responding to me on different whatever. And then I see and I'm like, how come I hadn't seen that until now? And then I clicked on it and I was like, oh my God, I'm in touch with this guy. Oh, yeah. And then me thinking, oh, what a nice guy. He's offering to do this thing. Meanwhile, he's the longest running podcaster.
I mean, that's amazing.
Son of a bitch. What's happening right now?
Part of the deal is, I am, if you measure it by popularity, I'm probably somewhere in the 800,000th most popular podcast. But, if you look at the number of episodes I just put up my 700th episode, which if you do the math is pretty far from weekly, right? But for example, the year my child was born, I put out 2 episodes that year, because I just could barely, it was a firefight to just keep things going, But I was Vito, I think you were older with your first child, right?
Yes.
So, it's a young person's game. There's a lot of getting on your knees and you're like, oh my God, I wish I had done this 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but one of my greatest strength as a podcaster and as a creator of stuff is I don't need anything from it, right? I don't need the hustle. I actually have a ad provider that occasionally gives me ads, which is sort of ridiculous for the popularity I have, but I was the first person to sign up with them in 2005 or 2006. And they're loyal enough that they have kept me that whole time. And occasionally I'll have, an ad read for something. So I've made more money than I deserve, but I don't need it. So there's this whole Zen thing of the, there is no attachment, right? When I see all these hungry, thirsty people that are watch any show from the last 5 years that involves a true crime podcaster. Are they the good guy in this show? They're never the good guy in the show. Yeah. They're always this venal, skeezy person who's opportunistic, and they're always the villain.
So tell us about the Evil Genius Chronicles. I the first page, the very first thing you see on the page is "Welcome to the Shambling Mess," which I think is a fantastic way to introduce yourself to people that have never been. So tell us about the Evil Genius Chronicles.
Well, it's largely one of the other things with there is not really an elevator pitch. You would think I've had plenty of time to prepare one. Right. It's mostly a 22-year-long monologue. I have guests. It's an open enough format that I've had people on. I might have some people on here in the near future occasionally I have writers or musicians or people that I want to talk to. Like Jonathan Colton cites me. If you look in his history, he used to do a show with Hodgman that they were podcasting in like 2004, in that era. And I was cutting the Colton songs out of those shows and playing them on my show. And then Colton was like noticing incoming traffic. And I reached out and asked him to be on the show. And it was the first podcast he'd ever been on. Right. And, so there's stuff like that. Largely, I talk about culture, some politics. I talk about comics. There was a Heroes Con rundown, episode a couple of weeks ago, Typically there is a Heroes Con episode. And occasionally I had another friend who's a podcaster who he lives in Detroit, and he came down, and we did a 3-hour episode where we went through the guest list, and we're just talking about people we were interested in seeing. And, it was just, it was a death march to record it and to listen to it. But it was like one of my greatest moments, right? It was just like, oh, wow. Whatever. John Workman, by the way, still to this day is one of my favorite people.
Oh, he's great.
Every time I go and I'll buy something off his table, get him to sign something, because I just love talking to that guy.
He lettered me, I think, on the Fox.
Yeah, I was going to say.
When you said Hodgman before, do you mean John Hodgman?
John Hodgman, yeah. He had a podcast called The Little Gray Books or Little Green Book. He did this show in Boston that was very weird. Like at one point, he would like give walkie-talkies. He would just hand them to the audience. He would stand on stage, and like somebody in the back would talk on the walkie-talkie. And Colton would do these songs, and various people would come up and do readings. It was very This American Life-y adjacent. That sort of thing. And he just did it for a while. This would have been before the Daily Show, before the Apple ads. It was just Hodgman being Hodgman.
Well, I met him during Bored to Death, the HBO show that Jonathan Ames created and show ran, and that I worked on. And really cool guy. And over the years, I've seen him here and there. Once in a while, I might have like tagged him on something or whatever. And then, what was it? I think it was late last year or maybe early this year. I was on the F train here in Brooklyn going toward Manhattan. And I get in and I sit down, and across from me is John Hodgman talking to some other guy, but they're deep in conversation. And usually I'm the guy that tells everybody, oh, say hello. or especially if it's a chance meeting for the first time. In this case, I already known John from years ago, but we hadn't seen each other in years. But if it was Jack Kirby, I'd be like, you have to go say hi to Jack Kirby or whoever, right? Of course I cited a dead person. But that's because I can't believe I never met Jack Kirby. So they're talking. I decided, you know what? Let them talk. I'm not going to bother these guys, kind of thing. And at some point, John looks up and he's like, "Hey, Dean." Oh, okay. I guess he remembers me. And we just started talking, and like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? I got to play." All this stuff. It was like I felt like special all of a sudden, because like I guess he remembered me, and was like, and then he asked me what I was doing, because he knows I make comics and whatnot. And he's into all that stuff too, So I don't know. That was a cool little moment. So when you said Hodgman, I was like, wait a second.
So from there, that's a good seg to my Harvey Picar story that I put a pin in before. Yeah. So he was a guest at DragonCon. And so I had, in that 90s, when I had that radio show, which aired on the Georgia Tech radio station, I would do live remotes from the floor of DragonCon. And it was so much fun. I interviewed all kinds of people. Dennis Kitchen. At one point, Dave Stevens. I think Dave Stevens was one of the guests the very first time I did it. And he could not have been lovelier. I mean, he was just a great guy. And I had all these various people, Greg Theakston, and, they tended towards, there were guests that came in, but a lot of like regulars would be like Greg Theakston lived in suburban Atlanta towards the end of his life. And so this is, I had a long history with DragonCon, and this would be like 2000. It was within a year of when he died. So what was that? 13, 14. So in that era. I'm talking about when Picard died.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That sounds right. Yeah.
Somewhere in that vicinity. And so he I go to the Walk of Fame, and this is back when you could get into the Walk of Fame. We went 2 years ago and it was impossible. But so we're walking around.
2010. 2010.
Okay.
That's fine.
Just because I've never been to DragonCon and I'm not familiar with a lot of it's very I don't want to say ritualistic, but there's a lot of traditions they do
Mhm.
that I'm not familiar. What's the Walk of Fame? Is that the parade?
So the Walk of Fame would be where a lot of your like bigger ticket. This would be where if Clark Gregg or somebody like some big media star is
Right.
doing autographs. It's kind of built for crowd
Okay.
control, and
Oh,
it's
it's
where
on the
Mark
floor.
Hamill is going to sign, or Stanley, or someone like that. But so sometimes you will have Bob Burden set up in the dealer's room probably, but some of the big names will be in the Hall of Fame, and Harvey Picar is there, and I'm walking by and I see him. Now, I love Picar. I've loved him for so long. He's, every creator, he might be the one that like is closest to my heart. And I see him. I've never met him, and I see him, and I think he and Joyce are having a fight, and they just both have this look on their face. And I was like, I just can't right now. And I just didn't. And then then later never came. And then, within a year, he's dead.
Yeah.
It's like, God damn it. Why didn't I just walk up there regardless of the situation? Because I'll tell you, like, I don't know if you remember the story specifically, but there's a story, I think in American Splendor 3 called Snow Day. And this story is Harvey, there's like a blizzard coming down, and Harvey can barely make it to work. And he gets to work. And then because once he gets to work, the blizzard gets worse. So no patients are coming in. So there's nothing to do all day. So he's at work, and he's got a gig reviewing some book, and he's got the book in his back pocket, and he spends the day, on the company dime reading the book. And, now the situation where I read that story for the first time, I was working in that chemical factory. Like, I was a youngish man and working rotating shifts. And over the end of the year, they would clean out the vessels and all this stuff. So in the QC lab, I had to be there, but I had 1/10 the normal amount of work. So, and because it's Christmas week, I'm getting like double overtime. And typically someone wants to go home and be with their family. So I'm working 12-hour shifts. So I'm getting basically 36 hours pay for doing a fraction of the work that I normally do. So for those years that I worked there, I never saw my family during Christmas week. I'm like, I will come next week. I'm making, this is how I'm getting my broke ass caught up on everything.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I'm there reading this story more or less in exactly the situation that Harvey's in when he's writing the story. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like the most perfect like symmetry between my reading experience and the story itself. I'm like, I'm living the story he's telling. This is fantastic.
Did in a weird way, did that help galvanize you to become a podcaster and to do something with your quote free time or downtime?
When I did that radio show, well, that was kind of like the bridge project between all that stuff, because I was still working that job when I started the radio show. And the funny thing is, like, when I was at Georgia Tech and working for the radio station, I went and did for Georgia Tech News. I went out and I covered some of these like one-day cons in like damp, mildewy hotel basement ballrooms. And I interviewed Lamar Waldron, Bob Burden, Brian Stelfreeze back when Psychops was his only. In fact, I've got a Psychops right here with Stelfreeze's autograph. This was his only published work at the time. Was this thing from Comics Interview in like 1988 or 89. Wow. And and Mark Martin, and so I was interviewing these people.
So you have a lot of history on your.
I was going to say, like, yeah. I appreciate, like, the thing that I'm appreciating with this conversation is how you have all these, not that Dean and I have any holes in our memory or anything, but you complement what we talk about every week. Like, you're a natural guest. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of fit with how we talk about things and what we talk about. So it's like, I'm literally sitting here, not zoning out, but just being like, oh my God, this is what people must get when they listen to our show, because I'm listening to you talk, and I'm like, oh, I get what people are saying now. I mean, I understand the voyeuristic nature of our show is listening to two friends talk about comics or whatever, but like, in listening to Dean and you kind of go back and forth here and there, I'm just like, oh, I get it now. I really totally get it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean that's what I like about the show is, I mean, I like listening to you guys. There was a it's now defunct, but there was a podcast called Sidebar. I don't know if you heard this. It would have been probably mid to like 2010s ish, and it was 3 African American guys from Atlanta, and 2 of them are real close to my age, and I'm real close in age to Dean. Like I'm within a year of your age, and these guys are about the same age as me, and they would talk about riding the number 23 bus down Peachtree to go to Oxford Comics. I'm like, that's the same bus I got on to go to Oxford Comics from Georgia Tech. You know, it's the same line. And they would have these people on. And I remember, you know, there's this notion that comics fandom is very white, except that when I came in Augusta and Atlanta, and that was not my experience, right? It's not white. It was very much not white. And like in Augusta, it's very, very not white. You know, go to any comic shop and it's, you know, half.
My crew growing up my crew growing up in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, you know, in the 70s and 80s and 90s. My best friend is black. I know that sounds cliche, like it should be a t-shirt. Who read comics. There was Sean Smith, Puerto Rican. And then I'm a quarter Jew, but then there was my Jewish friend Eric Waldman. And then later on, Josh Neufeld, another Jew, and then Larry O'Neill, you know, the son of Denny O'Neill. Like we were definitely a melting pot. And then some girls were getting into comics, you know, which was so cool. But
girls comics,
like, girls were reading comics too. It's crazy.
Well,
no one take that as a drop and use that against me. Of course I know better.
Well, these guys at one point they were interviewing Trevor Von Eden.
Oh wow.
So Trevor Von Eden talking about, you know, being black in comics. I'm like, Trevor Von Eden is black? I had no idea. And then he talks about how he said, when I started, probably the only other black guy in comics was Keith Pollard. I'm like, Keith Pollard is black. I didn't know. Keith Pollard's black. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know.
You know what's really messed up too? What's funny? It's funny is that your
Ron Wilson. Sorry.
Ron Wilson's my favorite, like Marvel 2-in-1. I bought a few things from him, including I think a Hulk that I gave to Dave Proch. Ron Wilson's my fave. No, but then you do the stupid thing when you're a kid is like, okay, you assume everybody's like you, a white dude, of course, but then I'm already explaining how like a very diverse group is going to buy and read these comics and talk about them every week while playing Atari video games and, you know, throwing them on a Nerf football and whatnot, you know. But you start to wonder, oh wait, does he draw black? Does he draw like a black person? Do they draw like a gay person? What does gay art look like? You know, like, and it's stupid. What's it dumb? Is that girl art? Did a girl draw like that? Do you draw like a girl? Like, it's just dumb, you know, to even think that way, you know?
If you look over this shoulder, this is a page from Becky Cloonan's Northlanders that I bought a couple of years ago at Heroes Con. And I've really gotten like more into buying art and, you know, less into, for years, decades, like the greatest pleasure in my life is like going to the 50-cent bins and digging through. Like at Southern California Comics, they had like walls and walls of those. And I was with somebody and I found a Pacific Elric that had been on my wish list for 35 years for $1 in that thing. And I audibly gasped. And I was like, it was like that feeling of like finding a thing you've been looking for a really long time for $1 is like better than, you know, it's better than going to Lone Star and, you know, ordering it or something. It's like, I have really put in the sweat equity to get this thing.
You earn that comic book.
But I've gotten more into buying original art, more into stuff like that. And I bought that. This is like the first 3-figure piece of art I'd ever bought in my life.
Let me ask you, is that how do I say this? 11 by 17? Is it 10 by 15 art size or is it smaller? It looks smaller.
There's a little bit of forced perspective because if you see these like weird old replica swords, they're pushing it back into the background.
Yeah. Okay, I see it.
I think it's
farther
normal.
away.
I think it's 11 by
17. So that looks like a normal traditional comic book size page. Okay, because I know that sometimes artists work on 8.5 by 11 and or try to even draw it to the size of the printed comic. You know.
No, but when I was leafing through her book, and so. To back up slightly, like every time I've ever bought flowers, I buy flowers the same way, which is I turn my head and then I look back and I grab the bouquet that jumps out at me. Like because it's my belief that you can't think your way into a good bouquet of flowers. You go to the one that grabs you.
Mm.
And so I have a real similar thing. Like when I'm shopping for art at somebody's table at a convention, it's like I'm flipping through and she's got these Northlanders pages. I'm like, oh, that's good. That's a nice page. That's the page. This right here. That's the page I want. And there's no doubt whatsoever. This is the one, and I feel like all the art that I bought ever since is the same way. I get it the same way.
Right.
I want to make a note that to anybody watching and listening, this is another milestone. You now know how to shop for flowers.
I had never heard of that, and that's kind of a beautiful. It kind of reminds me too when I believe like there's a tradition of the bride that gets married takes flowers and throws it over her head backwards, right? Toward what are they called?
Maids of honor.
The maids of honor, and then the one who grabs it, I guess, is the next one supposed to get married or something.
It's not also, they've also changed it to not just be just maids of honor anymore. It's more like all the single women that are available.
Got it.
But yes.
Okay, so but I love that idea of like, I mean, that's happened to me with cats. So I have cats, and sometimes you get into a room full of cats, and you're like, oh my God, I need to take them all with me because I want to save them all, kind of a thing. So it's a struggle, and often the way I have chosen a cat is because they chose me.
That's what we always said about Kirby. Like Kirby. When we got Kirby, our pit bull.
I thought you were about Jack Kirby.
No. Like our dog, like we had seen 3 or 4 dogs that day, and we had brought our Cocker Spaniel Casey with us, and we figured that whatever dog we picked, Casey's got to be okay with it, and that was the only dog she was okay with. So we knew. And he was absolutely pathetic. He was all skin and bones and stuff.
Oh, I've had cats that were dying right in front of me, and I was like, that's the one I got to save, of course.
Dave, I want to ask you kind of like the question that we not usually ask, but we've asked it a couple of times. Your Mount Sinai of comic book creators. Who are you putting up there?
I get 4.
You get 4. It would be Mount Rushmore, but it's
Picar's got to be number 1.
Okay, Harvey Picar.
Walt Simonson, number 2. Jaime. Here's the thing with it's got to be Jaime Hernandez. Of the 2, if I were going to have dinner, I would have dinner with Gilbert. But the work of Jaime is, I think, they're like so different in personality. Like Gilbert is like so avuncular and like he is the life of the party. He's like a giant personality, and Jaime is like reserved and off in the corner. But Jaime's work means so much more to me. Like that whole Love Bunglers thing. I cried like a baby when that thing paid. I was like, oh my God, I've been reading this story almost 40 years and it just paid off.
I need to read that.
Oh my God. It was like so unbelievably good. So Jaime has got to be up there. The number 4 is where it gets real hard because those are like the slam dunks. I mean, like Ditko could be there. I'm going to go. I'm going to go on a left field. It could be Allred. I'm going to go Bob Burden. Because Bob Burden is so different from everybody else. I bought my copy of Love and Rockets #1 from Bob at an Atlanta Fantasy Fair. I love to tell this story. Bob is an operator. You guys have you met him?
I met him, hung out with him. Like Bob Burden, by the way, Flaming Carrot for those who not.
Bob's always working an angle, right? He's always trying to figure something out. And so at the time of these things, they would give him a table and he would take a short box and he would put comics for sale on the short box that he has up there, but it would like $100 and above. And this is like mid 80s, right? So these are, expensive comics. So I paid him $100 for my Love and Rockets #1 in 1985 or 86, something like that. And, but I have every issue of Flaming Carrot. I got the Killian Barracks, like that oversized Flaming Carrot #1. I have one of the Vision, like he first published a Flaming Carrot in the Atlanta Fantasy Fair book, like the convention book. And I got one of those off eBay recently. but here's the thing is that I knew Bob well enough because there's an ID that used to run on. I ran into him just at a show, like an Indigo Girl show, I believe it was, at a shitty club back when they played little shitty clubs.
That's crazy.
I had a tape player to bootleg the Indigo Girls, and I saw Bob Burden. I'm like, and I got Bob to record this thing. You're listening to WREK Atlanta. I'm Bob Burden. I'm Bob Burden, and he's also a fan of the station. Like he listens to it. He's like, I draw the most strange literature of the 20th century, and I do it while I listen to WREK Atlanta.
So go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
I was gonna say, and so, but for years, Bob would like, if he ran into me at a bar, he'd buy me a drink, So like Bob is like more than just a creator I like. He's probably the first creator that I actually knew as more like as a person who was also a creator that I liked.
Bob Burden is your Don Simpson.
Yeah,
Because Don Simpson's the same way.
Right.
Like, maybe not the drinking, like buying you a drink, but everything you're saying just reminds me of Don whenever I see him at Three Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Don's great. Don was he and I were parlaying yesterday and today. Bob Burden. So what I love about that answer using Bob Burden is that would then, I feel like a little bit of a kinship, like with something like Antimatter, Chest Face, COVID Cop, those Billy Dogma, Jamie Legit, Red Hook. Like, he goes a little more off the reservation, and they're brilliant comics. And I actually saw him at OAX, Original Art Expo, earlier this year in, was that Florida? I think that was Florida. Yeah. But you're reminding me, and I don't know why, because you were saying something, and I wrote down this note, and I wrote down Silly Daddy. Are you familiar with Joe Chiappetta's Silly Daddy comic?
Yeah, I've got some somewhere in this house. Yes.
So I don't know what you said that sparked this memory, but I remember when you would go to SPX, and like it's a 3-day show. Well, it's really a 2-day show, but I think you're hanging out Friday night, the night before, whatever, before the Saturday, Sunday. And what you often do with everybody is you're like, oh, here's my new comic, and you're kind of trading this and that and everything. And so I would give him a latest issue of my comic, or so and so, a whole bunch of people he would compile all these things. And the next day, because you said the bin where you got your $100 Love and Rocket. So the next day he'd have this bin of all our comics that we had given him the night before. But here's where it gets crazy. Okay, first of all, I was like, fuck you, man. Like, what do you think you are? But then I would like go and look at my comic, and I would notice there were panels missing. So like, not only was he selling my comic for whatever, but it was also a destroyed comic book. And I noticed the other comics had the same issues. There were panels and things missing. And then he'd bust out this original comic called Silly Dada, like Dadaism. And what he had done is he had taken panels from all our comics and arranged something, and with glue that night before had made this original piece of comic book, whatever it was, Silly Dada. And I thought, he's a fucking genius.
Yeah,
this guy is amazing. And like, I think he only made a singular one. I don't remember, there were several of them, and he'd taken other panels and made different ones or something like that. And then at one point I remember thinking, what do you ink with? And he showed me like a mascara brush that women use for their eyes, and he was using that sometimes to like dip it in ink and get this weird crinkly kind of line that he would get. He's brilliant and nuts at the same, kind of like Bob Burden, in a way. Like, but you reminded me with the long box or the short box, and just like it suddenly sparked this memory of Joe Chiappetta and Silly Dada.
Name I haven't heard for years, man.
I feel like towards the end of that run of that radio show that I was doing, and that radio show for a while, for 2 years, was on the public radio satellite. So it was, they would send Carl Castle to break your legs if you said it was an NPR show. It wasn't. It was, you rent time on their satellite. But here's the thing, because I was, for a while there was this guy who was the head of the Atlanta Radio Theater Company. And in 1995, he had this, I had breakfast with him at DragonCon, and he had this come to Jesus meeting with me because I had moved to Louisiana, and had sweet talked the university station there to let me use one of their production studios. So I'm still doing this radio show, and I'm sending cassettes back to Atlanta. And he's like, you're really screwing this up because you're already doing the show and sending one tape to one station. Why don't you send this one tape to an upload station? And so I was like, oh yeah. And so then I was like, I started doing the research, and it was one of these things where, when we're talking about just being friendly and, engaging, it worked out that this is one of those situations where everybody got their hands washed the right way, because I went to the manager of the station and I said, what do you think about doing this? And he's like, I know the guy who's in charge of the Boise uplink. And so there you pay like the station for the uplink, and then you pay the satellite for the time. And it cost, I think, because Boise was the cheapest one in the network, and you're not doing it real time, so who cares where you're FedExing the tape, right? So I would FedEx it to Boise. They would uplink it. I think I paid Boise $10. And I think because it was a mono 30-minute show, I think I paid $30 a week for the airtime. So for $45 a week, I'm syndicating this thing on there. That's all it took in 1995 to get up on there.
But because it's a learning show, what was the takeaway besides getting the exposure and getting your stuff out there? Are you making money? I know you're spending money, but are you making?
If I was doing good, I would get enough underwriting to break even. Mostly I was going in my pocket.
Okay.
In 1997, I made a phone call to this weird website that was selling books, trying to get them to sponsor my show. And they said, we don't have money to do that.
Yeah.
Which of course it was Amazon, right?
Yeah.
So, but I would go into my pocket sometime, but also for much of the 2 years that I was on that satellite system, I was being funded with just the money that if they didn't spend by the end of the year would disappear. So it was like, because it's such a small amount of money, really. But also it made the station manager look good to his bosses that there's now a national show flagshipped out of our station. And it made the station look good to other people, and it made the university look good. It made everyone look good to everyone else. And so, all I had to do was just not embarrass anyone. And so that was like the beginning. That was like the bridge to podcasting, because like on this system, like where you get the little description of the show, I wrote those, I edited the show. I did the interviews. I read the books. I booked the guests. I read the book. I conducted the interview. I edited the thing on this really janky, mid 90s digital workstation. I mastered the thing to exactly 29 minutes on the digital audio tape. I drove to FedEx and sent it to Boise. I did literally everything on this. There was, when I listened to, sometimes you listen to one of these like big network podcasts and they list this names of people. And there's like 15 names. I'm like, what do all these people do? Like, how does it take 15 people to do this show?
Yeah, I know, right? Because after what you did, everything a one-stop shop, but I mean, in terms of so with us, gratefully, I think you're going to help us catch up on have the audio version of this show up on Spotify and everywhere else, right?
Absolutely.
Is there other thing? And thank you, we're grateful for that. Is there other things that you can help impose, the possibility of maybe, or Vito, you would know this, I guess, as well, is of advertise or getting advertisement, because I don't know what we have to hit in order to get in on that.
At this point, the only thing we don't have is subscribers. That's a burden in and of itself. We have enough shows. We have everything but subscribers. If I was looking at it correctly the other day, because I actually I had sent Dave an invite to Spotify Studio or whatever it's called now. And when I was doing that, I was like, all right, editor, picking out all the things. And then I was like, oh, wait, I was looking at monetizing and I was like, oh, so the only thing we don't have are, what do you call it? So subscribers.
Right. So there's lots of ways you can do this. There's, you hear those weird dynamic ads that get inserted literally on the show that's going to publish this week. I have a rant on those about how terrible some of them are. They happen in mid-sentence and they're really loud or really soft, or sometimes they same one inserts a couple times in a row, and all, they're just terrible. For you guys specifically, what I would do is you got the Rolodex, right? You have a deep bench of people to talk to. I would find individuals. I wouldn't go through any of these systems because, everyone's going to take a cut. Everyone's going to get their beak wet. I would find some system where you can get individuals to sponsor you for a reasonable, what would make a difference to you would be so cheap in terms of the world of advertising, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it could very easily be, you pick whatever makes it reasonable to you for the hassle of having to manage it, and other creators that are doing Kickstarters. You probably, for your friends, you talk about them anyway, but just some way for individuals. Do you remember Project Wonderful?
That sounds very familiar.
It was, I'm trying to think who it is. Was it Ryan North? Maybe had this ad thing that was up on a lot of webcomic sites.
I think, yeah.
It was like a bid thing. You would bid on it. And if you had the winning bid, you would get like 24 hours where your ad appeared on their website. And it was actually kind of fantastic. But you could do something similar, which is, it's X amount to sponsor the show. And, we're free on these ones. Like right now would be all of them. But, you do one per show and you take it and you just advertise it to the people And it's like, you can sponsor our show for this,
Right.
I mean, that's the way I would do it,
Right.
because then it's like much more direct. You don't have all these scumbags in the middle. You don't have all these other people taking a cut so that you end up getting, 15 cents on the dollar.
You're reminding me right now of Bill Burr, whenever I listen to him and he does his advertising, it's so funny. He actually makes you want to listen to the advertising because he'll say the name wrong or he'll talk about a mattress that can be sent back 30 days.
I love a good ad read. Those are always great.
So yeah, a good ad read can be fun.
I try real hard to make them entertaining, and and typically, I say, and here's the thing: like there was a product real recently that I screwed up, and I didn't get the product because I didn't respond to a thing in time. So if you listen really closely to that ad read, you'll hear me say, "I'm really interested in this. At no point do I ever say I've ever used the thing." And it took me, it's probably 2 minutes long in the show, but it was like 10 minutes of recording because I would start to say something. I was like, oh shit, I can't say that. And I would, like when I edited it down, it was like, or there's these long periods of silence where I'm thinking, what can I actually say here? But that's the whole thing. Is like a host read ad read is, it's an ad you want to hear is not an ad, it's content.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's only an ad when you don't give a shit about it and you don't want to hear it.
I had a podcast prior to this and I would do fake ad reads every week. I'd be like, and this episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino. Ciao.
Right.
You like soda, but your teeth can't take it. Drink San Pellegrino. Like I would just because number one, I wanted it to sound like it was like professional or something like that, but more like, oh wait, that dude actually likes reading ads. Let's give him an ad to read and pay him. And it didn't work, but I do love reading ads, man. Like especially like when it's not a read ad, it's an experienced ad. And you're just like talking from the heart or shooting from the hip.
Well, I don't think I basically had to pull expose my own kayfabe on this, but in the middle of my show, I almost always say, oh, my throat's getting dry. I got to take a sip of this fine coffee and stop and I'll take it. It's because, when I, do the Patreon, I have a Patreon, and when I do the show for the patrons, I take out the ad reads if there is one. And so that's just the edit point. And so I do the ad reads between those sips of the coffee. And then if I'm taking the ad out for the patrons, I have this very clear, I've stopped the conversation.
Right.
There's nothing happening. I can take the ad read out. It's like, oh, one more sip. Okay. And so, I mean, it was 10 years and nobody had ever noticed that was what I was doing.
Right. These little podcast tricks got going on there. You mentioned, Vito.
I was going to say, the craziest thing about listening to Dave's process with doing like not just like ad reads, but like just how he does the podcast and everything, is so similar. Like, it's so weird that we talked about mini comics and ash cans earlier, because it's the same process.
Mhm.
Like, the whole idea when he was talking about sending the tape to Boise and like, it is so getting Tony Shenton, on the East Coast. If you were a comic book creator and you wanted your comic to get into as many stores as possible, everyone knew the name Tony Shenton. Tony Shenton would go to stores and sell your book. And everything Dave was saying about getting the show, or his interviews put up to the satellite, and how much he paid. It's like, God, he's just making mini comics just with his voice.
Yeah, it's exactly it's really no different than the urge to make a zine, which was no different than the urge to make original podcast.
I mean, sure, the internet makes things a little bit different now, but like, I would imagine your hustle is similar, if not, made a little bit easier by the
what's
internet.
funny is, like, if you go to, like, even StreamYard, when I pulled up StreamYard, like, look at the thumbnails of the people that are their idealized podcasters. Like, go to Patreon, like, before you've logged in, and you see the people, and they're so shiny and scrubbed up and well dressed and so aspirational. I'm like, everyone that I know is real the opposite end of thing. We're scruffy, we do not look like that. None of us are trying. There was a weird time period where people were, and some people did successfully quit their day jobs. People like of similar ilk to me, not, somebody who was already famous, not a Mark Maron, but, Dawn and Drew are the ones I'm thinking about, where they were professional podcasters for a few years. And that just never, that was never the goal, because I forget, any quote always gets attributed to a more famous person than actually said it, but somebody said this thing like, be careful when you take your hobby and make it your job, because you still have a job and now you don't have a hobby.
Yeah,
exactly. Although I kind of counteract that by writing plays and movies and prose, and like, so I'm still storytelling, but I'm also, it's not all comics kind of thing. Quick question. You've been mentioning Dragon Con a lot. I'm going to be a guest at Dragon Con this year for the first time, and it's the 40th anniversary. Are you going to be there, number one? And number two, is it true that it's just pure debauchery that I've been hearing about?
You got to find it.
Well, yes. The short answer is yes.
You're going to be there? Or
I'm not going to be there. The problem with that Dragon Con, so like, I didn't go to Dragon Con number one, but I went to number two, and like, the guest of honor was Michael Moorcock, and the whole thing happened in like one Sheraton ballroom. And I got free tickets, I think, through the radio station. And I went to this evening party that had, like an Elric cake, and they cut it with a sword, like just ridiculous kind of 80s fan stuff. Right. And so I've seen like every incarnation. My kid and I went 2 years ago, and we went in the most idealized possible circumstances, which is a friend of ours that we've known for a long time. He hurt his back, and there's this thing with your hotel reservation where there's a continuity. It's probably the same as San Diego. Like, if you had it before, you're on a list of people that gets to keep it.
Yeah.
So he physically could not go to Dragon Con, but he was going to pay for his hotel anyway, because he didn't want to have to get back out of line.
Right.
So there's a room sitting there not being used. So in exchange for just going and picking up his and his wife's badges, so that their streak of 30 consecutive badges was contiguous, my kid and I got a free room in the Hilton, which is like one of the con things. And so all we did was buy our memberships. And this happened, very late in the game, like 2 weeks before Dragon Con. So we're going, we do all this stuff. Even in these circumstances, it was hard to have a good time in the year of our Lord 2024, because everything was so crowded. Like, it blew my mind that you could want to go to a panel but not get into that panel.
Wow.
We stood in line for panels we didn't get into.
Wow.
This is not Hall H ones. One of them was about cryptids of Appalachia, and we were in line for that panel for an hour and didn't make the cut.
Wow.
So now my kid, and so we didn't go last year. We aren't going this year,
Mhm.
but my kid does want to go one more time. So we're probably going next year.
How old is he?
15.
Okay, that's good age.
Yeah, and so and at the time my niece was at Georgia Tech, so we had this situation where,
Uh-oh.
uh-oh.
Thank God you're
I'm
doing
not
the
moving
audio,
enough. My
'cause no
motion,
one will- no
my
one
motion sensor
hearing us
didn't
will
detect me. So my niece the kid was just young enough at that time that I was a little nervous about walking around. So my niece kind of, they went and did some Zelda thing that I had no interest in, and I went and did something different, So, but now, like, the kid is big enough, he can walk around and do whatever he wants, and I'm not so worried about it. So, we'll get some of those sorts of things in. But you gotta, it's probably, I'm sure, real similar now to like going to San Diego, which is you can't just show up. You have to have a plan. You have
It's
to
a
have been
plan.
working
I
on
think
this.
I'm supposed to do like a panel every day, 5 days in a row.
Mhm.
It sounds crazy. And like I have to bring a piece of art that I got to give them and some signs. Like, I don't know, man. I've never done this before. So,
I mean, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot. I mean, it's like,
yeah.
you remember I don't remember the series, but do you remember the Ever So Much More So? It was some kid's book from when I was a kid.
Mm-mm.
This guy had invented this Ever So Much More So, and anything you put it on would make it the same, but ever so much more so. So
Got
water would be wetter and everything. So Dragon Con is now just ever so, it was always what it has been, but it's ever so much more so. There's like, what really cut it from me is we're in the Hilton and we were going to go meet somebody for dinner at Peachtree Center. It's 2 blocks away and it took us 45 minutes to get there.
Nope.
There's so many people.
That's
crazy.
So you will have a different experience. You will have a different
as
and
a guest,
better
I'll
experience.
but still, so 2 things have happened tonight. Coverless comics. we have to do it, Vito. Like, we'll talk to Charlie. Maybe we'll have like some whatever, something. And then you just mentioned about getting tickets from the radio station. Vito, we got to do something where we're giving tickets to something from our quote radio station. Like,
that's a good idea.
Our podcast. Like,
We should
I
talk
don't know what it is.
Mark and
whether it's-
Shelley.
Well, what could be is maybe like the next time you come to the city, to New York,
Mhm.
maybe we should do a bathhouse Banya type thing.
Oh,
And I don't know what the contest is or why you're getting tickets or whatever,
we still want to do awards too at some point. It's just right now I'm trying to find something that's like tchotchke enough to be meaningful, but not going to break the bank. And I'm trying to find something specific. And if I can find it, then we're golden. Like, there's something very specific I'm looking for, and I don't want to say what it is, but
I don't know what it is you're
like
talking about.
Express or something.
No, I like what you're thinking, but also there's so many things to think about. Like, my cousin Dave, has like one of those printer machines that can print out, like, he made a Batman or something, right? What if we made a Mount Rushmore of, like, and it changes every year or every 6 months or something.
Take the faces off.
You just take the faces off and do a different Mount Rushmore. And then, I mean, we're not on that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, but I don't know if that could be a part of it.
You ask them their Mount Rushmore, and that's what
their
you print.
Mount Rushmore.
You print their Mount Rushmore with their name on it, and
yes, something like that, but also that incorporates us into it somehow. I also think that you could literally, right here. I mean, this is going to the advertising realm, but like, what if, like, in the spirit of being a comic book freelancer, like something we do with the Cafe Bustelo can that I use to make coffee with, or half my dinners is Skippy peanut butter.
Yeah, I was gonna say peanut butter,
or something like that. Like, maybe there's a way to. We'll think of something good. Like, I like the idea, and it's funny you mentioned the awards because a couple of reasons. One is, Chest Face, my comic, got nominated for a Ringo Award for Best Short Story, which is exciting, and I'm thrilled and honored to get that nomination. And a lot of it has to do with because part of the nomination process. Not only is the jury they have, but also fans and anybody can weigh in and help nominate. And of course, you know, the numbers make it so that you get in or don't. And then obviously, and then I think what happens is the voting committee is your peers, is comic book makers. So that's happening right now. And so anybody listening to this right now, they can go to the Ringo Awards and please, please, please vote for me, my comic Chest Face, for best short story. That would be awesome. I would love that. But the nomination alone is already great. And then we're talking about awards. What else did I have on here? This list. Wait, what was I talking about? Now I'm losing it. You know what happened? And I wrote this down. Do you see where it says right here? I don't know if this can show up. It says 6:48 a.m. hammer time. 6:48 this morning. I'm lying in bed. And I thought someone was knocking on my door of my apartment, because my bedroom is actually, if you were to remove the walls, is part of the hallway and then my front door, kind of. But you have to walk into my apartment, go down a hall, and go down through 2 rooms to get to my bedroom. But that's how close it is to the, you know. So I'm like, who the hell's knocking on my door at 6:48 a.m.? So I get up groggy. I'm like falling over, and I get to my door, and there's no one there. I'm like, and then I hear it again, dun 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 dun, and I'm like, is that a hammer? Is somebody hammering something at 6:48 a.m.? So I go lay down, and I'm trying to figure out, is it my neighbor this way? Is it my neighbor that way? Is it the other? Like, there are 3 choices, right? But then, because of the way walls work in tenements, it could be anywhere, you know? It could literally be from another building. I remember one time, my upstairs neighbors had moved out, and luckily I have a fire escape, but they're not their fire alarm, but what's the other one that you have for smoke or something? Not
the
smoke,
carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
This apartment was completely empty, and the carbon monoxide thing needed a new battery, so it started going beep, beep, like every few seconds for a day. And it's echoing in the empty chambers of this apartment, so it's even louder. You can hear this outside, and I'm sitting there trying to go to bed going, oh my God, I'm going to kill myself. So I decided, let me get out in my fire escape. Let me climb up to the next floor in my underwear, you know, like in the middle of the night. And I prayed, and luckily the kitchen window that was the fire escape was a little cracked. So I opened that shit up. I got in, I snuck around, and I broke that thing. Like, I could not figure out a way to like undo the thing to get the battery out, because clearly it needed a new battery, which is why it was beeping, you know?
Yeah.
I just broke that thing because I was like, I can't go to sleep. This is impossible. There's no one to call in the middle of the night, you know? So
you caught in hammer time. Idiot. Such an idiot.
So anyway, I'm a little tired because of this morning, man. Like, I tried to go back to sleep, and that's the thing. I'm a late sleeper anyway because I stay up late. But I've been trying to get up at 9 and maybe a little earlier, you know, and you automatically wake up at a certain time. I tend to wake up like at 7:30 for some reason, and then I go back to bed, and then it's like 8:30, and then I spend another half hour. Today I was getting out of bed at like 10 because I was so damn tired from the early wake up, you know, so that bummed me out. I wanted to let people know who are listening to this that I was recently just on Splash Pages, hosted by Kerry Sanders, you know, and crew. That was a lot of fun. Vito showed up there a little bit. Threw down some questions. I'm trying to think of anything else. The Chest Face coverless comics. We got to do coverless comics, man. I'm telling you. And you know what I keep thinking too is I want them to have that like old pulpy look, you know, and like that 64 color palette, you know.
Do a Matt Kent and kind of make it look distressed, right? Like print in the distress.
Oh, speaking of, I have Geiger number 24. I did a variant cover. Did I show this already or no?
I don't think so.
So I actually got copies in the mail, and this is the cover.
What's his name? Junkyard Joe.
It says Junkyard Joe. Vito, I think you can actually pop our thing, can't you? To is that part of the feature? One of the features is where you can like literally feature. There you go. So, and I don't know if you can tell, but you see this right here.
Mhm.
And right there, they did like fake stressing to make it look like an older comic, you know, from like the DC Go-Go checks from the, what was it, the 60s or something like that. And we did that on some of my other covers for oh, what's the company? You know, well, Image is publishing it, but it's a Ghost Machine, you know,
Yes.
and Jeff Johns, and it's a fun book, man. But this is something, and then check out. This is coming out this week. Guess when I drew this? 2024, 2 years ago. So finally, and I have one other cover that I did for Hyde Street that I hope will see the light of day, you know. So did you have anything else, guys? Or
So I just real quick wanted to show you so Heroes Con. I know Vito, you've never been, Dean, but Vito, you have been, right?
I have. It's been a long time and I want to go back badly.
I'm gonna show you a couple things I got at Heroes Con this year. Heroes Con is my favorite con of all time. So I had a interview, or not, I had a conversation the first day with John K. Snyder, who I loved his work. You know, I very much was in the Eclipse, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so like I had some fashion in action for him to sign. And we had a nice chat and we talked about 80s comics. At the art auction, I have bid on things at the art auction. I've never won anything until this year. And I bid on this John K. Snyder, Dr. Doom.
Whoa, that's an original
green construction paper. It's like a Latvian green construction paper. This is and what he asked me what I paid for it, and I told him, he's like, you got a good price on it. That's about half of what I would have charged you if you had commissioned it.
Right.
So
wow, that looks great.
So I've got to like get this thing kind of framed and put in a place of honor. I think I told you I've been getting more into original art. I didn't get this year. In previous years, Jose Marzan is usually at Heroes, and I got this page from Flash that Jose had inked. So he had, you know, but this year Greg LaRocque was also at Heroes Con. So I took this back and had Greg sign it this year.
I really like
and I took this comic, which I think is Flash 55 of the 80s run, and I had both of them sign the actual page, like this page of the comic book, which I thought was kind of fun.
Nice.
And then got two more. Well, I bought this one from the inker whose name I'm blanking on. And so he signed it. This right here, this question cover. I bought it from the inker, but Jose Luis Garcia Lopez penciled it, and Jose was like right around the corner from there. So I went and got Jose to sign
Lopez's signature down at the bottom.
Yeah. So like these were all fun, but this is the crown jewel of everything I got, and I cannot believe I got this. Joe Kubert almost always inked himself, but he had a few pages where Ron Randall inked him.
Oh wow!
So I got this Sergeant Rock page.
Sergeant Rock, wow.
Which it's got tanks blowing up. It's actually got a Sergeant Rock face right here.
Got a bazooka.
This is the only page that Ron had that actually had Sergeant Rock on it. You know, it had like other characters.
Right.
And so I had, you know, the same thing that I was telling you before. It's like, oh, this is the page. And it took me like all weekend to kind of get things together for me to be ready.
Before you put that away, you see that corner right there that's cut a little bit, and on the bottom as well.
Mm-hmm.
I forget why that is. Why they did that?
It was from the art return. Like
it would just mean that. What would it mean though? What would it signify?
I don't remember. I think it was something along the lines.
Look, it's on three corners. It's on three corners of that. That's crazy.
Is it like the cutout of a record or something?
I feel like when they were made, they weren't really, there wasn't really a market for original art at that time, which is why a lot of Kirby pages went missing. But when you went up, or was it Joe Illich that was talking about going up and getting original art just given out to them, like on tours? Like, I feel like that might be, you know, along those lines too. But I feel like that would have been returned.
I feel like that's a production note in a way. Like maybe that faces, you know, toward the spine, or I don't know what it is, or maybe it denotes something that has been checked off. Like it has a cut on the corner on the upper right. They've already like it's just like a note to each other or something. I don't know. We can probably look this up or ask somebody.
We make coverless comics, and we'll use cornerless comic pages.
Cornerless comic pages. All right.
All
they call that scallop, don't they? Don't they call that scallop corners?
Sounds right.
This is I should find out what this is. So
Yeah, man.
at that same Dragon Con that I went to a couple of years ago, I bought a Elric page from P. Craig Russell.
Ooh.
And so I had him sign it to me because I like to have everything personalized to me, right? It's part of the deal. That was me. I actually hit the I gesticulated into the springs of my boom mic.
You sure you're not Italian?
Maybe. And so I had him sign it to me, and he was real concerned. He's like, you might be hurting the resale value of this. And I told him the story. I said, I bought Apple stock in 1999. That was an investment. This is something to make me happy in my life.
Yeah.
So that's what this is for. But there's a corollary, which is, original art has a lot of whiteout on it. If I absolutely have to, I would just wipe my name out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like if I had to sell this and that made a big difference, boop, my name is gone.
It's funny. I actually I hesitate when I write someone's name if they ask for it, because I do think, well, at some point you're probably going to get rid of this, or you're going to resell it or whatever. And I do wonder, but I still love what how you feel that, this is a keeper for you, kind of thing.
It's weird how, at Roy, I'm probably done like autograph hounding, partly because so many people are charging for it now that it's just straight up expensive to walk around the show floor getting people to sign stuff.
Somebody asked me to charge for autographs. I'm like, why would I? Like, you already bought the comic. Like,
well, so for me, it's what's happened to me at tables is that they'll bring comics for me to sign, like the Fox or Fantastic Four or whatever, and they ask me how much you charge. I go, that's free, but I make these comics that are right in front of you, and this is how I live. So maybe you might be interested in something else I've done. You know what I'm saying? And not necessarily the Marvel.
If you're bringing a stack of comics this big, I can see charging, because that's an investment of time at that point. And
John Totalman, I think when I got him to sign it, he had a policy which I thought would be great as the default, which is I think 3 free and then $5 to the Heroes Initiative for everyone past that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Like that's great.
That's
like
nice.
Simon was like 1 free and then 10. And he went through the line and said, if you only want 1, I'll just sign it right quick and we'll go.
Right.
And, stuff like that. But I cannot remember who it is. One of the letterers wanted $35 a signature. One of the letterers. It's like Chris Claremont wants 15.
Yeah.
And, but Roy Thomas is the only person, because one of the good things HeroesCon does is now they publish like everybody's price list of like what they want, which really helps you make some of these decisions. It's like, oh, I'm not paying $40 for that guy's signature. It's not worth it to me. But Roy Thomas is the only person who will charge you more if you want a personalization. Like some people will charge for your signature, but they'll personalize it. If it's personalized, they'll do it for free.
Right.
Which kind of makes sense because they know you're not flipping it and eBaying it.
Right.
But Roy Thomas has that 70s. It's like what, on Cartoonist Kayfabe, they would always talk about the jobber mentality. He's like, I'm writing more characters on this page, therefore you need to give me more money.
Wow.
I'm writing 2 more words, therefore I want, 10% more money.
He did create Wolverine, so I guess
that's right. He created Wolverine.
I see. I can't do that. Like, I can't. I've had people ask me how much signature is, and I'd never charge. And then, well, before I sign it, I go, "Do you want me to make it out to you, or do you want me to just sign it?" And they'll, more often than not, just sign it, which is fine. I don't care what you do with the book afterwards. It's already been made. I don't. We just got an email yesterday about getting a payment for a book that we did. And I was like, I didn't do it for the payment. Like, just give it all to the artist. I don't mind. You know what I mean? Like, just stuff like that. Like, if it were a for hire book, that's a totally different conversation. But something I did out of like my affection for the subject matter or the story that I did, like, I didn't do it for any of that. I just did it for fun. Like I got to work with my friends. That's all I ever want to do with comics, is work with my friends.
Yeah.
I've only signed a couple autographs in my life. And at Oricon in the late 90s, I worked for an ebook startup. And one of the things we did is we had these floppy disks that we had our ebook software and a couple books. And the science fiction writer Mark Bourne worked at this company with me. So he had a book, his short story collection, and he put that on there. And I had transcripts from that radio show. And so we're giving away these ebooks, and we're just giving away the disc. It's like, check it out, see what you like. One person asked me to autograph the disc drive to them. It was Larry Niven.
Oh, wow.
That's the only autograph I signed was to Larry Niven. I was like,
Larry Niven,
holy cow, this is great.
Big science fiction writer from, I want to say the 70s, if not the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Not to be mistaken with David Niven.
Ringworld was his big thing. Like I read Ringworld when I was, 12 years old, which is the perfect time to read Ringworld when you're 12 years old.
IKEA meatballs.
Don't let me forget, in my little mini fridge here at the studio, I got to bring IKEA meatballs to my father tomorrow when I visit him. Okay.
So we're going to wrap it up so Dean can get his meatballs. Okay. Dave, we're obviously Evil Genius Chronicles is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I saw, I think it's evilgeniuschronicles.org is
correct
the website. Where else can people find you online if they choose to get in touch with you?
Go there and it'll link to other stuff. I'm on Mastodon. I've basically shut down almost everything in the world. I deleted my Facebook account. I deleted everything out of my Twitter account. I mostly just don't care about anything. So Mastodon or, whatever crazy ass thing comes up. Like I said, I don't need anything from anybody. I lead a nice life out here in South Carolina. Everything is fine. I don't, the amount
you have
of
a lot of comic books to read, man. You got a pile of comic books.
What's sad is I retired more than 2 years ago, and my TBR is taller today than the day I retired. It's sickening. It's like you would think it would be the opposite, but it's just the shocking part of all this is like how much you think you're going to get free time and you don't.
Would you hire somebody to read them for you and then tell you what they're about?
Well, that's the whole AI thing, right? It's like let's have the machine do the fun stuff while you get to do the drudgery. It's like that is not the future I was sold. Before I forget,
did you ever go back to that novel you were working on or that you were thinking about?
I have a bunch of. I have a novel that I wrote all the way through. It is completed. I finished it I started NaNoWriMo. My wife was pregnant, so this would have been 2010. Mm-hmm. I didn't actually finish NaNoWriMo until 2012. So it took me like 2 years to get the 50,000 words in, but I actually wrote the full novel and I set it aside and I was like, let me give myself a little time. And I never went back and cleaned it up and edited it. So I just I should do that.
I got to finish mine. Let's incentivize each other.
Let's be each other's accountability partners.
Yeah,
I have a novel that I've written the first part of, so let's get on it, man.
Yeah, next time we have you on, we're gonna all try to be honest with each other about how far we've gotten in our novels. I'm almost done. I'm on the last 4 chapters, I think. Mm-hmm. But we'll all have you back on and we'll all compare notes.
Well, there was a guy, one of the listeners to my show and a fellow podcaster at one point said, "Can I read that?" And I hemmed and hawed and I said, well, I need to, and then I thought there's literally one person in the world that wants to read this book. I'm going to give it to him right now in this jacked up state that it is. It's like, it opens at the Japanese internment. I read the first 2 pages of it. I've got the wrong day for Pearl Harbor. I've got the wrong year. None of this makes sense.
Just make it alternate history. That's all.
It's all.
It's already kind of alternate history because I have a band that's like the analog of the Sex Pistols, but I needed it to tie into Jonestown. The timing didn't quite line up. So I needed it to be a year later. So it can't actually be the Sex Pistols. So I created this band called the Filthy Lugers. That is my Romana Clef for those guys. It's like, so, there's
you mean like a Luger, like a German guy?
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's funny you say you have one person that wanted to read it. I want to finish it so bad so I can have my wife, Dean, a couple others. I because I know once I'm done with this first draft, it's not done, but I want them to read it. And I'm so eager to just get it out there to those guys that I can then go in and do the real work. So at least you had one reader. Like, that's a good thing.
And he said it might take me a while, and it's been about 5. I think it's pre-COVID when I gave it to him. So, but I've been cleaning up my office, and I found the notebook where I sat down, I read the thing, and I took notes. So I found that notebook where I just went through, and I was like, stuff like I had somebody turning on their heels, and I realized I had that in there like 45 times in a 80,000 word. It's like, why is this like Hogan's Heroes? Like, is everyone in here Colonel Klink? Like, why is everyone turning on their heels when they leave a room?
So evilgeniuschronicles.org, and also, like I said, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Dean, you said you were going to be at Dragon Con. What were the dates for that?
Well, actually, before that, I'm going to be at Plastic City Comic Con, which is oh gosh, hold on. That would be the 22nd of August, I believe, and it's only like from 10 to 4. I was supposed to be going to Whitney, because Jen can't make it, but Whitney might be going to London and Paris.
Oh wow!
So I was just looking, actually, as I was talking to you guys, Vito, and thinking, is there any way you could join me? But I think it's like a 9-hour drive for you.
What, to London?
Oh no, not yet to London. No, to Massachusetts.
Oh yeah, no, it'd be. I'd have to
It's far.
do it in stages.
Yeah. So,
when is it again?
The 22nd, I think, of August.
I don't know if I'd be able to get that. We'll see. I'll see if I can swing something.
Well, let's talk, because then I'm going to talk to someone else, locally that would drive with me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But if there was a way to maybe build in, like, you come in to New York, and then the next day we drive and then come back, whatever, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But Dave, I just want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for backing Dean's Antimatter Kickstarter. Hopefully you're on the hook for the second one that's going to be coming soon. And we're going to be talking a lot now that you're going to be our unpaid intern.
Absolutely.
The way you put it in your message.
I've got time.
There we go. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate every single last one of you. If you appreciate us, go ahead and look at the links below. There's a T-shirt you can buy that'll go towards improving the show, other than Dave's contributions, of course. There's also a link to donate to the show. You can just go straight without the apparel. I will be at Baltimore Comic-Con, possibly at whatever this thing with Dean is. We'll see. Dean, before we go, you have seen the cover for Pay the Devil, and your thoughts are?
Oh, I like it a lot, and I like the little additional element that we discussed. But yeah, I'm excited for the book to finally come out. It's very retro, kind of. It speaks to a certain era of comics that I think you're going for and striving for.
I think if I were to try to talk Dave into buying one of my books, this would be the book to buy. Like, like I think this would be more up your alley than say
definitely
traditional superhero comic. But I'm really.
When are you going to show it? When do you think you'll
reveal the cover?
Yeah,
I want to wait because we're actually working on the back cover right now.
Okay.
And then I might. I'm not going to reveal the back cover because it's not a big revelation. But like once we have it and I have it like all set, then I'll tell everybody. Maybe even on the show. Like I'll probably do it first.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. And actually, Dave, real quick before we end this, you said you're off of a lot of social media. How did you find out about Antimatter? Because I was using Instagram, Facebook, Substack, this show. Like, what was the thing that told you about it?
Your Substack led me, because I was probably following your Substack because of Scene by Scene.
Got it.
And because of that, I saw a reference to this show, and I'm like, oh, these guys do a show. So it was maybe episode 20. It was like in the 20s or 30s when I started.
Oh, cool.
Then I listened to the backlog, and the kind of sporadic releases, kind of like, like occasionally
on the Spotify thing. Yeah.
And so, I knew about it. I was listening to it on the show, and I saw it on your Substack. So
okay, good to know.
One of those things where I've got time, I've got a little bit of money, and so I don't mind kind of throwing it around here and there to help people out. So
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you again, Dave. Thank you, Dean. And thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, guys. Peace.
It's going to be a long way to get out of here. So once this outro comes up,